The writing strategy that our group focused on was summarization, primarily focusing on adolescent education. So the presentation will focus on what the strategy is, how to use it and teach it, and we will also provide details as to why it is considered an effective strategy. So, a definition of summarization. We pulled the definition of summarization from the article, What's the Gist? Summary Writing for Adolescent Writers by Nancy Frey, Douglas Fisher, and Ted Hernandez. The purpose of a summary, after all, is to convey correct information in an efficient manner so that the reader can learn the main idea and essential details through a piece that is much shorter than the original. The ability to write a tight, concise, accurate summary of information is an essential entry point to other writing genres, especially analytical and technical writing. Summary in adolescence allows students to condense information from their assigned readings into a shorter way. Summarization isn't as text-heavy, but still accurately hits the main ideas and key details of reading. Struggling readers, however, may have a hard time with this because they may input minor details or copy a whole sentence from the text instead of using their own words to summarize. So, how to use or teach summarization. So, summarizing, as explained on Reading Rockets, it's suggested for students to not simply retell the events, but instead identify key details and condense them. It's important to provide what's essential in a story and express it concisely. To help young writers use summarizing skills, it's helpful to model and practice summarizing regularly. Summarizing approaches may vary depending on the student's age and experience level. In What's the Gist? Summary writing for struggling adolescent writers. It's suggested to provide text with stopping points, and at each stopping point, it's important to discuss the meaning of the passage, explain and discuss vocabulary, negotiate a single sentence summary, repeat the process with the entire text. List of sentences is then used to help create a larger text. In terms of differentiated instruction, it's really important to use tools like sentence frames, visualization methods, and giving them routines based on the text and students' needs, including independent and paired or group work. Using think aloud strategies are also very helpful. Okay, so what are the effects of summarization? From What's the Gist? It suggests that when students learn to make use of summarization efficiently without plagiarizing, they are developing a core competency for other writing genres. Other writing genres may include research papers, persuasive essays, and analytical essays. From a meta-analysis of writing instruction for adolescent students by Steve Graham and Dolores Perrin, their findings suggested that when teachers make use of summarization, they are providing their students with an explicit teaching of skills, processes, or knowledge. Summarization shows strong promise as a writing strategy supported by studies that were generally high in quality. However, these findings are based on a small number of studies, none of which use random assignment or tracked how closely the strategy was implemented. Even with these limitations, the consistent use of key research controls in the studies certainly adds confidence to the positive effects summarization can have on students' writing. And lastly, our group focused on summarization examples across content areas. We had a discussion where we came up with some examples of how summarization may be used in practice for different subjects. So in an English class, for example, a teacher may introduce summarization by first modeling the process through a verbal think aloud, asking students to verbally retell a story in their own language might help their thought process with having them identify the main idea, distinguish between the key ideas and the less relevant information, and paraphrasing the content then in their own words. So providing students with this scaffolded approach certainly will help them build confidence and reinforce their comprehension, while structured tools gradually lead students, while these verbal structural tools will gradually lead them towards becoming more independent with their summarization skills. In a history class, for example, we talked about how a teacher might incorporate summarization for reading primary source documents. Summarizing can help familiarize them with the unfamiliar material. The teacher can provide students with sentence frames, such as the main point of this document is, or a key detail to support this is, ... So, using things like sentence frames and peer interaction certainly helps adolescents process challenging texts while also supporting their oral and written expression. In a science class, we came up with the example of how a teacher may use summarization as a way to check comprehension of complex informational texts. So, for example, if students are reading about, say, an ecosystem and are guided to create a visual summary through a drawing or a diagram, they can show relationships between organisms and their environment, for example. And the teacher is now emphasizing that summarization takes different forms. It's not just in written text. So once students complete their visual summaries, they can present them to the class and explain key points. And lastly, this is our works cited page.